Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 544, written by Mystery Chick 88, an eerie, crackling time reset. Let me just clarify before I start. I am completely sound of mind and have not shared this publicly until now, as I couldn't really handle negative comments. I just want some closure, I guess. So here it goes. I have always been into the paranormal as a kid. I was completely fascinated by it, and I found over the years the more open to it you are, the more downright bizarre some of the stuff you experience is. This tops my list of weird experiences. Roughly 4 years ago, my sister came to my flat one night to spend a bit of time with me as we both had been working like crazy and hadn't had the time to catch up. It was just the two of us, and she suggested having a game of cards, something we have always done since we were kids. It's a favorite pastime in our house. Once I had gotten the cards out and started shuffling them, she asked me to look at the time on my phone as she had to work the next morning at 7 a.m. and needed to be home in a reasonable time. She had lost her phone on a night out a few days previously, a terrible habit that she has. I told her it was 6:10 in the evening. She replied, "Okay, well, I'll have to be getting off around 8:30, 8:45 to get my uniform washed and dried, so keep an eye on the time for me." I agreed, and we started playing a bit of rummy to start with. Now, we weren't drinking alcohol or taking any drugs. We were just having a relaxed game of cards, chatting about guys and work. The usual stuff, I suppose. Everything was normal. We played cards for what felt like 2 hours easy. I mean, you can't mistake that length of time when you have about 16 to 18 hands of rummy, and we're in the early stages of playing a game of poker, having got bored of the other game. I remember having the weirdest feeling come over me, like the light in my room dimmed, and I distinctly felt an electrical, crackly feeling start in the bottom of my spine and creep all the way up to my skull. I looked at her, and she was looking at me, all wide-eyed and silent, like she knew something was up. I blurted out, "Something is wrong, really very wrong." Without blinking or reacting in any other way, she just says to me, "Look at the time," which I thought was strange. I picked up my phone and looked at the time. A mixture of shock and dread creeps over me. "That can't be right. It's not possible," I mumbled out loud, to myself if anything. My phone must have glitched out or something. Getting up to turn the telly on to see what the time is on there, she's looking at me like, "What the hell's going on? What is it? What's the time?" She asked me again. I just repeat that it can't be right, and as I switch the telly on, the time flashes up in the corner of the screen. It said 6:29 p.m. She sees it and is now just as freaked out as I am. "Amy, that can't be right. Did you see your phone say the same time?" I told her it did. I pull out a laptop to check the time and even get a watch out of my drawer to see if they all got matched up, and sure enough, they did. We just sat there in a bit of a fog like, what on earth had just happened? We tried to discuss it, but we couldn't make any sense of it. To be honest, it felt uncomfortable. Even to this day, to talk about it, it doesn't feel right. She breaks the silence with a joke, something like, "Oh well, at least I have another couple of hours to chill with you. We just tried to forget about it." I just wondered if anyone had any ideas as to what it is. Case notes, file number 544. This description you have, how unnerving it felt at the time, like the whole room was crackling with energy, even feeling it in your spine. I felt those words myself reading this. My brain is trying to recreate the scene for myself. A total, all-consuming atmospheric change. Your whole body's senses telling you this is not right. So here's the thing. We know that time travel to the future is not only possible, but we technically do it all the time. Any increase in our velocity, relative to each other or other bodies in the universe, results in our timeline curve stretching more into the spatial category. The way I like to think of it, we have a certain number of balls, and by default, all the balls are placed in the time bucket. That is to say, the default is traveling through space-time purely in the time part. But if we add kinetic energy and start moving through space, changing our inertia, We removed some balls from the time pool and put them into the space pool. Now we're moving more through the space part of space-time. And the more energy we put into moving through space, the more balls we take from the time category. At low kinetic energy states like we live every day, not much happens. Very few balls are removed from the time pool. But put enough energy in and you can, almost, remove all the balls from the time pool, which effectively means that relative to other bodies in the universe, you're barely moving through time. But this really only happens when you get to really quick speeds, like we're talking significant fractions of the speed of light. This can also happen by being close to extreme sources of gravity, like black holes. Think of the movie Interstellar, Miller's Planet. They go down for merely hours and come back to the ship where 23 years had passed. They had removed so many balls from their time bucket, they had barely moved forward in it at all, relative to the rest of the universe. And that relativity part is really what befuddles the brain the most. The fact that the universe doesn't have any absolute time. There is no now everywhere. It's all relative. I honestly still struggle to intuitively incorporate that into my mind, like it doesn't make sense. It does, but it's weird. It's incredibly strange. It's how Einstein felt, no doubt. So how can we all apply this to your glitch? What on earth could have created a reverse effect? Not slowing time for you, but literally emptying the time bucket entirely and somehow adding in negative time to reverse it. I have no theories on that. It would actually violate causality. Now, I will say the classic A word, aliens. We certainly as humans don't have any ability to go back into time, or even a viable theory as to how it could be possible. Yet that happened to you and your sister, so there's no mistaking this for absent-mindedness. I do love glitches like this, where there's more than one witness. It really confirms that something incredible happened. Now, was it aliens, or some freak weather event? I don't know, some effect of the universe that is so rare that it almost never happens? Honestly, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. But it is an incredible story. Case file number 545, written by Carlo Sestaro, Airl the Alien. I am 24 years old, and since I was born, I was always interested in the philosophy of the mind, religions, and why they exist. And I always was a rational, scientific person, until when I was 23 years old. Little backstory first. My vision has always been extremely good. Never wore glasses or lenses, always a very visual person. One of those guys who constantly stops to look at trees because, like many of you I'm sure, I recognize the sacredness in everything. I was always quite spiritual after that, without even knowing what the spirit even is. I always felt also that my sessions of free thinking were guided by someone that was not me. Since when I was a kid, I always used my imagination, and I was always interested in the first-person experience, because I feel like the realms of philosophy and religion and science will one day merge. So since I was a kid, I always used my mind for what it is, a viewer. I always felt kind of guided in my thinking. I would see images, concepts, answered to questions I had about society and religion, and so on. I always felt like I knew something else before my birth, but never paid much attention to these thoughts, telling myself they were not real. When I was 21, I finally started to take meditation more seriously, and my exploration into my mind received a great upgrade. At 23 years old, I started to realize that the UFO phenomenon, to which I always felt attracted to, was probably real, and one day I was discussing this with my family at a dinner. Of course, the members of my family were kind of surprised by the subject because they always saw me as a very serious, smart person. And UFOs are for crazy people, right? According to popular belief. So mentally, I told my guides in my mind, I said, if you really exist, and I'm not talking to myself right now, that means you can listen to this. And if you can listen to this, you can show yourself to me. Now, if you do, I will give my life to this cause. If you do not, I will get a family, and I will presume that I should do what my human peers tell me. Materialize on this physical plane so I can see you with my eyes, or the party is over, and I will forget you forever. Next morning, I was up at 4:30 in the morning. I didn't use cannabis the night before, so I was completely sober, no drugs. I went upstairs and made myself a coffee with the intention of working out. I started to walk towards the park, and not even a minute into the walk, I saw my first UFO in my life. It was 5:02 in the morning of the 23rd of September of 2021, and my heart started racing because I knew they were them, my guides. I saw these 4 lights in the sky flying very fast in formation. Then the formation broke and they spiraled among themselves and disappeared one after the others. Extremely fast, extremely close, almost magical. Absolutely no sound at all, and it couldn't be a satellite. I always look up and always know what I'm looking at. After some months of realizations, I asked them in my head to give me the answers of what this place, Earth, is, and they told me mentally. Alien Interview from Roswell Crash, written by Matilda. I didn't know the book or its title before asking, of course. They didn't tell me this with words, but with images. I found the book and read it, and I was floored. I still don't know if these aliens are manipulating us and me, and they're actually enemies, but they are so subtle and they respect our free will so much that they don't give me this impression. It feels like they want to help us all. In the book, they basically told us that we are immortal spiritual beings and that we are trapped here because we are imprisoned. You cannot kill one like us, you can only trap them. In the book, my favorite quote is, "I sense your disbelief about you being a spiritual being. You want the proof of that? Be above your head now." For the first moment of my life, I realized the obvious. I am not my head or my body. I became aware that Airl, the alien, is an immortal spiritual being, and so are we all. Basically, according to Airl, we cannot remember our past lives because the people controlling Earth make us go towards a light that erases your spiritual awareness. And then on Earth, through mind control and false memories installed by the people we love, they ensure we cannot remember who we are or where we come from. Read the book before dismissing it, as it is written in the preface, what is true for you is true for you. You need to make up your own mind. But I know my own experiences have gone to shape my beliefs.